souls that we're bringing to the light. From maps to mods to the rigs we drive, we're talking to the folks who keep this farm life alive. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull up a chair and ride along with me. Stories from the makers, the builders of the scene. Farm Sim Talk, where we live the farming dream. He's got questions rolling like a big John Deere, digging deep with modders so their voices we can hear. From giants of the code to the artists painting skies, he's shining up their stories like a brand new combine. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull up a chair and ride along with me. Stories from the makers, the builders of the scene. Farm Sim Talk, where we live the farming dream. From tractors to textures, from silos to sounds, there's a whole crew of heroes making this world go round. So tune in and find out who's behind the screen. Farm Sim Talk's the place to see what farming really means. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull up a chair and ride along with me. Stories from the makers, the builders of the scene. Farm Sim Talk, where we live the farming dream.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. This is Big Day Dave, and this is Farm Sim Talk, a show where we get to talk to other creators here in the Farm Sim community, and we get to find out a little bit more about them. I am joined here tonight by RossN Mods. Ross, how are you doing tonight?
Hey everyone, good, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. All right, well, do you want to tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, sure. I'm Ross and kind of run RossN Mods, and I have a channel on Facebook and have a website, and I'm based in the UK.
Excellent,
Kind of anything, search for RossN Mods and you pretty much find me.
excellent. And do you have any shout outs you want to give us before we get going here?
Yeah, sure. Shout out to kind of everyone I work with at Event Engineering, my daughter Harriet, my friend Gemma, my family, all down in Cornwall in the UK, to mum and dad, and my sister. And yeah, that's about it.
Awesome, awesome. Real quick, gonna look at the chat here. I see a bunch of you out there. We got Ken Adlam, Reaver Time Todd, we got Dead Calm, and yeah, thank you all so much for coming out here tonight. Hope you all are having a fantastic day so far. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into this. We're gonna go into our first segment here called Digging Up Dirt. This is a segment where we get to know you for more of yourself outside of the farm sim life. So let's start off with this one. You mentioned that during the introduction there that you have a job outside of your whole modding career. You care to tell us a little bit about that, or?
Yeah, sure. So I work in the events industry. So I work in operations. So I'm mainly we put on events all around the world for um, kind of experiential marketing. It's called. So anyone that wants to launch a product, we support the kind of technology behind that and the build behind that. So we do lighting, sound, video, um, build counters, scenery, kind of huge amount of different items around events. Um, kind of based out of the Loughborough in the UK. Been doing that for around 20 years now. So I've been there a while. Like I say, I mainly do operations, so loading trucks, organising logistics, getting all the stuff packed up, ready to go to site. Yeah, it's a very interesting job. It's if every job's different, so very engaging, and yeah, I love it.
Okay, so basically, let's say somebody was unveiling a new tractor, they would contact you all, and you would set up kind of like the staging event for it. Is that what I'm
Yeah,
understanding?
yeah. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, if you were doing something like that, yeah might do the staging, might do some lighting, um, kind of maybe a video screen, maybe the content to go on the screen, any kind of software that's involved, we do that as well, or any custom um, kind of integrated technology we do. So that anything people need for the event, we're a bit of a one-stop shop, which is our kind of USP, if you like.
Well, dang, I know who I'm going to if I hit it big. Let's see. So, what are some of your hobbies besides playing farm sim and modding? Do you like hiking, fishing, watching sports?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I spend a huge amount of time doing the modding. So obviously, outside of that, I like kind of 3D design. Um, I'm used to live on a farm, so anything outdoors I enjoy. Um, uh, kind of, yeah. I suppose like I say, things around the modding is what I spend most of my time on. I'm interested in in those aspects, which then lead on to that the most.
So when you're doing your modding, do you use like any of the like are you familiar with like the blender tools and all that stuff? Like do you actually shape the model itself, or how does that
Yeah,
portion of it
yeah,
work?
yeah. So I use Maya now, which is kind of an equivalent to Blender, and it's what giants use. But I am familiar with Blender. I started off on Blender. Blender's a great tool. I really enjoy it. So yeah, I make all of the 3D models in that, and then the coding side, the XML side. So learning how to program the items as well. So I spend a lot of time developing my skill set there because I enjoy that creation.
And where did you come about learning this? Because I mean, unless it was like a part of your job or something like that, it's not something that a lot of people kind of pick up on naturally, unless it's like they're self-taught.
Yeah, we do a small amount of 3D design through work, but more at engineering level. So, I do a lot of making little objects. So do 3D printing and modeling of items there. So kind of got into that, and then the rest of it's all self-taught. Various YouTube channels. There's loads of Blender channels that I used to watch. And the it's really good piece of software. There's a lot of people that have developed that, so anyone that's interested in doing it, I definitely recommend going out and finding some channels and learning that way, and then that transposed into Maya quite easily. It's just a different set of kind of commands, but essentially it's very similar. The way you model items is the same regardless of what program you use.
Okay, so you kind of had a pretty decent base knowledge, and you were able to kind of branch out to the more specifics from there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So, do you like to read?
Don't do a huge amount of reading. I do like to watch a lot of films, a lot of series. So like to kind of watch a lot of UK dramas. So yeah, do tend to switch off and just bury myself in a film to kind of switch off because the rest of my life's quite, you know, have to concentrate, I suppose.
Gotcha. And what would you say your favorite movie is?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I kind of go kind of some of the classic Bonds, I suppose. I do like. Um, you know, Die Hard's always going to be a classic one for me.
Okay, we brought this up last time in I believe it was Old Grizzly's interview there, uh,
Okay.
but Die Hard, Christmas movie or not Christmas movie?
Yeah. See, my friend Chris will argue with me here, but I don't think it's a Christmas movie, but he's very much like it's a Christmas movie. He watches it every December religiously. Uh,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
but yeah, I don't know. It's not a Christmas movie to me, but there we go. Definitely one to debate.
It's one of those that it sets the internet on fire every Christmas time. For some reason, people get into this heated debate about whether it is a Christmas movie or not. And even my wife and I started talking about it right around Christmas time. And she kind of was like, but even Bruce Willis says it's not a Christmas movie. It's like, okay.
Yeah,
So it's one of those that I always found the debate interesting. And how passionate
yeah,
people get
yeah.
about it too is wild.
It is very wild, and I don't think you can convince people if they're adamant that it is the other way. Certainly wouldn't convince Chris.
So, what kind of music are you into?
Um, I I like kind of drum and bass dance music. I used to DJ years ago. Still do a little bit. Did a bit at Christmas at our party. So I like to get on the decks occasionally. So that's kind of what I tend to listen to. But I'm fairly laid back. With all sorts of genres really. Listen to all sorts because um, yeah, music's been quite a big part of my life since I was very young. So I'm not particularly tied to an artist or a type of music.
Okay. So, when you were DJing there, what kind of events would you do?
So what actually got me into the events industry is when I went to university, I worked in the student union there, who have a nightclub, if you like, in the evenings. So I was setting up all of the sound and the lights there, and then dabbled a bit with DJing while I was working there, and then ended up doing some DJing for them, and then kind of some used to help other people out and cover for people when they couldn't do it, and kind of evolved from there. Really, it was all quite fluid over the few years that I was there. And then that then got me into the events industry. I met the people that I work with today at the university. So
Oh wow! So y'all have known each other for a bit.
yeah, yeah, we've yeah, couldn't tell you off the top of my head exactly how many years, but certainly 20, 30 years.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's really cool that y'all were able to kind of stay together for that long.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of fortunate that for me, I guess, that fell into it, and yeah, the company was very young when I joined it, and I've stayed with them, and it's a great place to be.
Excellent, excellent. So we were talking about your favorite movies and we briefly went over books and television. Well, actually, we haven't gotten to television. Let's go into that. Uh, what's some of your favorite TV to watch?
So I tend to like crime dramas, probably one of my favorite things. Um, couldn't really tell you why. Just seem to enjoy it. It's yeah, pretty much anything that's released in that kind of genre, I tend to watch. Just seem to really enjoy it and get lost in it and kind of the intricacies of it.
Gotcha, gotcha. And then, what would you say is the oddest, weirdest, or most obscure movie or television show that you've come across in your time?
Question. Yeah, there's I'm not very good with with remembering the names, but there's certainly been some thinkers. There was one I've watched quite recently that just completely just one of those. I think it was a film rather than a series, but just almost made you completely rethink reality, and why we're here, I guess. And it's it was, yeah, proper deep. I couldn't
Okay.
tell you what the name was off the top of my head.
So, out of curiosity, are you into like automobiles or anything along those lines?
Yeah, yeah, I kind of have had BMWs for a few years. Kind of really like my cars. I've always since I first had my first car when I was 17, I've always played around with them and learnt how the software works and bits and pieces like that. So I do some of that in my spare time when I can. Find it really interesting, the engineering uh, and fixing. Tend to fix other people's cars more than my own, to be honest. But yeah, it's something I enjoy.
Oh yeah, it always tends to work out whenever somebody finds out that you're handy in regards to anything, but especially with like
Yeah,
cars and stuff like that. People are calling you all the time. It's like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? It's like, yeah, I can do that.
yeah. Particularly if it comes to a BMW, I've fairly familiar, so I do get a lot of phone calls and family members and bits and pieces asking me what's going on with their current vehicle. But I enjoy it. I find it interesting. I don't mind doing it. Um, Generally quite a practical person, so DIY as well. If people need anything doing, I'm normally there to give them a hand.
So you mentioned that you actually worked on the software on the cars. So it sounds like you've been into the kind of tech side of things for quite some time.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it was just an early passion that, when I was at school, I was rebuilding computers and started poking around with things, and I've always been interested in how things work. If anything that is on a YouTube channel that explains how something works, I'll probably be watching it. But yeah, software particularly, was fortunate and we did a bit of a diversification um, in the dreaded COVID when we were all trying to find other things to do for the events industry. We installed some car safety systems as part of a trial. So putting the mobile eye system into vehicles to interact with trying to understand how people react to different road events. So how people drive, how people respond to things, how essentially the idea was that in order to maybe look at the future of driverless cars or slightly more automated cars, how people pay attention and how people react to certain warnings, um, to kind of develop on. So it's a project that we had the opportunity to get involved with the installation of. So learn how a car's CAN bus works and how to install things in cars. Very
Okay.
interesting.
No, it sounds really interesting. So what kind of started that passion for BMW?
I think it was partly because that was the car I owned at the time, I guess, and I think the thing with BMWs is there seems to be a little bit like the farm sim community. There seems to be a huge BMW community online, so a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people um, kind of have access to certain pieces of software, and it just has that knowledge that you can all kind of jump on a forum and talk about it, and quite easy to get the information. And um, I don't know why that brand seems to do that more than any other. But yeah, if you go online, it certainly seems that way.
Okay. So if, let's say, money was no object, you had unlimited resources, that wasn't an issue, what would be your dream car?
Uh, it's so tricky. So I'm quite fortunate that I own an M340i at the minute, which I absolutely love. It's the best car I've ever driven. You know, it's super. It's it's really powerful, but also um, really comfortable. Like it's just got that perfect balance of everything. If money was no object, I'd love something like a McLaren. Um,
Ooh.
would be amazing. Like a P1 or something that's full of technology. Um, that would be really exciting.
Oh yeah, technology and more importantly, a lot of power.
Yeah, a lot of power.
But it's the problem though is are there really good opportunities for you to be able to open something like that up where you live?
uh, yeah, I mean, the there are places, and there's a lot of really good kind of circuits and tracks and stuff around here. In Loughborough, we're not too far from um, Donington Park, which is kind of fairly famous one.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, there's various car meets and stuff that go on there, and there's road wise, yeah, it's harder than it used to be, should we say? But there's certainly plenty of places around.
I gotcha. Yeah, I
Yeah,
must
fairly
admit
open
one of
country.
my guilty pleasures for the longest time there was watching Top Gear, the UK
Mm.
version there, and yeah, so I'm familiar with the racetrack you listed there, and yeah, it's just yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. I've never gone on a track day, but I think that would
Yeah,
just be wow. That'd be so fun, so fun.
yeah, definitely a good thing to do. Very exciting. Yeah, Top Gear is obviously huge over here. So pretty much anyone that has vague interest in cars would have followed certainly the older Top Gears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, as far as I'm aware, they don't make it anymore, right? I thought they got rid
No,
of Jeremy Clarkson and all that.
yeah, so he moved over to Amazon, and it's now Clarkson's Farm is the thing that everybody's buzzing about, as I'm sure you've heard. But yeah, the kind of BBC Top Gear is currently not a thing, because they had a couple of incidents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was such a shame when they stopped televising it. Like I said, I was a
Yeah,
big fan. I thought it was absolutely hysterical. The three of them. Um, I even remember like
it's
the
just such a
early.
great trio, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was definitely the personalities and how specifically how James May clashed with the other two. Like the other two, like
Yeah.
they almost seemed like they purposely got on each other's nerves, but James May was definitely the odd one out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think actually did a really good job of transposing that over to the Grand Tour, which was a show that they then did afterwards, which some people don't like as much and some people love it. But I think just put the three of them in any situation, and I think it works, to be honest.
Oh yeah, and I've seen the Grand Tour, and in my opinion, I mean it's basically Top Gear. I mean it's just Top Gear by a
Yeah,
different name.
yeah. It was the same. I believe it was the same producer as well. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, yeah, they
Yeah,
did
the
well.
only bugger is that it didn't have like the Stig and it didn't have like the traditional race track and all that stuff. But you know,
Yeah,
get used to
I
this.
think there were certain things. that they weren't allowed to do.
Yep. Yeah, and I forget their little like the stick that they did for the driver there in the Grand Tour. If I remember right, wasn't it like an American or something like that? It's like he's the angry American or something, or it might have been like that season kind of thing.
Yeah, I think they tried a few different things, didn't they? Kind of before they moved on to the just concentrating on the specials. But yeah, they had the American and they had I think they had was a lady as well.
So let me ask you this. Let's say tomorrow your PC blew up and you didn't have the means to replace it. What would you do instead of being able to create mods?
What kind of just for the day or like what would I just do? Move
Just in its
move
place.
on to
Let's just say the resources
yeah
just weren't available and you couldn't buy one for a extended period of time.
yeah. Um, like I say, I would I'd probably I do like to go for a drive, go outside, find somewhere new to visit. Um, my family are based down in Cornwall. Like I love going down there and finding a new cove that you might not have found before. Going to the sea, um, spending time on the beach, even in the winter. It's the love a storm or seeing the sea or crashing waves and um, took my daughter down at Christmas and she was really excited about going to the beach and we're like, it's really cold. She's like, no, 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 it's fine. And then classic teenager turned up and then was freezing. um, but yeah, it's I do like it down there.
So how did you get started in Farming Simulator?
Yeah, so while I was at university, started playing the game in 2012. Just cannot remember exactly how, but I guess I must have found the game advertised, tried it, come from a farming background, and I was like, oh, farming simulator, that would be enjoyable. Give that a go while I'm away from home. Um, got massively involved in it, and like most people that play farming simulator, you turn it on and think, oh, I might play that for half an hour, and then 5 hours later, you realize what time it is. um, there's a few stories of when I was at university, people trying to get hold of me because I'd left my phone, downstairs or whatever, and they're like, "Where is Ross? Cannot get hold of him." Oh, he's playing Farm Sim. Okay, doing something really important then.
Oh man,
Family trying to get hold of me.
it is wild and just how much time you can lose just firing up the game. And I can only imagine, especially with somebody who, appears to have your type of passion for the modding scene. I can only imagine how much time you lose just in doing the farm sim thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think I do. I find with the modding, I can be a little bit more controlled about the time that I spend on it. But playing it, I don't know, time just seems to evaporate and you can't really do a short game. It's quite hard to, and it's quite addictive, so it's quite hard to put down. I think once you start. Um, so yeah, like I said, playing it for a few years, and then kind of when FS19 came out, um, there was a few features that were starting to come in, but only as mods, and silly little things like I remember doing. Um, I think like it had a loader for a John Deere tractor, and one of the loaders, all of the hoses connected up nicely, and one of them just had no hoses. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll add hoses to this other one to make it more realistic. So I had a look online, sort of see what I could find. Started dabbling around with modding, doing little bits just to make the farm I had more realistic, adding a few objects around the farm, and then kind of towards the end of FS19, I think that's when I released my first few mods on the Mod Hub, when someone pointed out that was a thing, and it just spiraled from there, really.
I gotcha. So you were playing for quite some time prior to actually like diving into the modding scene. So you said it was back in
Yeah,
2011 roughly when you started?
yeah, and then it wasn't until when FS19 came out, which was probably late 2018, I think it came out. So, um, yeah, it was. Yeah, I was playing it for quite a few years before I realized. I don't actually know exactly. I think it was FS17. They just kind of modding started to really kick off, but before that, it was very much just playing it, and then, like I say, it was just trying to make adjustments to my own game, and then kind of fell into it, I guess, from there.
Okay. So what when you started releasing mods, was it you were mentioning how it's was more specifically like I want this thing in the game because I want to see kind of that larger aspect of realism. Is that kind of what you
hmm
specialize in? Is more of the like realistic mods?
Yeah, it's certainly where I started, and it's certainly where I had the most, still have the most interest. Like I like to create it as realistic as possible. I think it's slightly easier now, but like I say, when in the FS19 days, there weren't very many animations. You wouldn't get very many dashboard lights. Little things like that I used to love adding in a kind of extra, the indicator stick moving, for example. Like, certainly in the early days, Giants never did that to any of the base game mods, or their base game vehicles. So I used to like to go through all the vehicles that I had on the farm and add in those extra features. uh, and that, I think there's still a long way to go to make it more realistic. I'd love to see more things like IC, um, where you'd have more and more switches and maybe controlling it more as you do in reality from inside the cab. Um, Almost like, I haven't actually played it myself, but the VR thing that they game that they released, where you're actually interacting with the machine more directly, maybe even changing a wheel, like by getting the character and taking the wheel off and putting a new wheel on because you might be putting a new tire on, or those kind of dynamics, would be great to see the whole process of farming in the future. I would find really interesting.
Oh, I agree. That'd be a really awesome feature to be added into the game. Um, so thinking of your modding, what is the one part of modding that you just absolutely dread to get to? So let's say because you really specialize in because it's the biggest part of the page I see when I open up the mod hub are like the JCB tools, the tractors and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so let's say you're in the midst of making a new JCB tractor. What's the one part of the whole development phase that you're like, oh man, I'm to this part? Can I just teleport to the end kind of thing? What's that one thing that you
Yeah, I
just dread
think
getting to?
I think the one that stands out the most is hoses, and I'm sure most modders say this, is skinned meshes. So, when you have parts that need to move with other parts, mainly hoses, the process of doing that is really time consuming and frustrating, and the hose never bends how you want it to. It doesn't matter how much you try, it always kind of kinks in the wrong place, or is stretching too much. Uh, it's something that in the industry they haven't really got a great way of doing it. Um, Hopefully, at some point, someone will have a revelation of a better way of implementing it. But at the minute, it's quite a manual process. And like I say, it's just you try it and try it and try it again, and eventually you get it somewhere close. But I'm never 100% happy with how hoses go. Um, that's probably the biggest one. And then the other thing that is slightly frustrating is, um, so when you're doing something complicated like a tractor, you have so many aspects to it because it's involved everything. You know, you've got all of the lights, the textures, the items, the hoses, the screens. There's so many aspects to it, and the way that certainly I work is I get to the end of the 3D stage and then I texture all of the textures, and then you don't really know 100% that you've got everything right until you get further down the line. And then if you get the item in game and you find a little texture that's wrong, or there's a little part you want to open, but it's not textured on the inside, uh, you've you have to go back loads of steps to fix that. So that can be quite frustrating. Uh, and if someone from the community says, "Oh, could you just make this door open or this part open," but you haven't modelled part of the inside, it can be that can be quite frustrating.
Oh, I could only imagine. I mean, I'm not a modder whatsoever. But I do have a lot of talks with other modders and whatnot. So I've kind of got an understanding of like at least high level the steps that are taking that are like in order to implement a tool or a tractor, things like that. And it's one of those where I could only imagine because essentially the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're the expert, not me. But essentially, what you're doing is that when you're building the model and when you're actually like putting everything together, you're basically just layering upon layer upon layer upon layer until you have that full 3D image, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when
that's right.
you get to a certain part of the like layering, let's say you're at the final stage, and like what you're explaining is that in order to be able to then like get the door to open or something along those lines, you have to basically peel back the onion to be able to get to that inner layer that's going to interact with that part of the model, correct?
Yeah, and particularly if you're releasing products on console, as I do, when you're building the model, you're trying to save data in as many places as possible. So if something's never seen, you make sure that you don't texture it and you make sure that you make it as simple as possible in order to make the model not too large and have too many slots or crash the game. Um, so because you're actively trying to do those saves, if you then find a part that actually you then do see later down the line, it's like, but I've excluded that.
So earlier you mentioned that you had a daughter. Can I ask what kind of family dynamic do you have at home?
Yeah, so I live kind of, it's just me and my daughter. She's here part of the time, spends part of the time here, part of the time with the mum. She's 12, so uh, of an age now where um, kind of I don't see as much as her as I used to because she's kind of heavily involved in gaming as well and loves to switch off with that. But I have her most weekends, and yeah, that's kind of
So how do you
our
create that
dynamic.
balance between your home life, the work life, and the creator life?
Yeah, I mean, my day job's fairly busy. I tend to work kind of 9 hours most days. And then, like I say, I only have my daughter at the weekends, so I do have time in most evenings. I'm spending modding. Um, but I think the important thing really is just to, for me, there's no real pressure do anything to a specific time. I think a lot of people can get quite worked up and be like, oh, I must release this by next week, and but I'm quite a laid back person, so if I'm not gonna make that deadline, I don't worry about it too much. But look, I'm gonna spend the day with my daughter today, so I'm not gonna mod, and that's fine. I don't think, oh, no, I'm gonna have to do at least 4 hours modding today, so that's gonna ruin my day or whatever. It's just I enjoy it. You do it when I do it, and the items will be out when they're out. Is how I view it.
No, absolutely. And I would imagine that it allows you to stay passionate about doing the modding portion of things, really doing anything. The moment you start pressuring yourself, you put deadlines on yourself and things like that, it's very easy to kind of slip out of that like grind and that passion.
Yeah, definitely. And it's and you get a lot of comments and people are excited about the products, and I get that, and they're like, oh, when's it going to be out? When's it going to be out? And that excitement is great, and I can't. I'm not a miracle worker, so it will be it will be done when it's done, and sometimes just say, yeah, not sure. I can't tell you. I genuinely can't tell you when because I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know how much time I can put into it. If I had a slightly different job or worked part time, then maybe I could commit a certain number of hours a week. But that's not the way that my life works currently.
For sure, for sure. And it's one of those like looking over your Mod Hub page, it's not like you're some kind of slouch or anything like that. You've got one of the busiest Mod Hub pages I think of just about any of the modders that are available out there. You look at RossN Mods, they're on the Mod Hub, and I'm seeing at least two full, well, not full, but two, well, one in about a quarter pages worth of
Yeah.
RossN Mods. So yeah, I mean that's pretty impressive all by itself. So you are obviously like putting in the work to be able to bring us the content, which I'll speak
Yeah.
for everybody out there. Thank you for all that hard work.
No, yeah, no problem. Like I say, I enjoy it, and yeah, certainly the last 12 months, there's been a fairly steady stream of kind of just mod coming out. Some of the early ones were helped that they were transitions from 22 to 25. Although the thing is with where I am in kind of my modding is that most stuff that I created for the previous game and some stuff that I even created in early 25, because my skills are developing all the time. If I'm coming to do an update or a conversion, I'm not happy with the original kind of file. So a lot of conversions for people would just literally take it, add the new features, make it work, boom, straight in the game. Every model that I transposed, I was like, I'm not happy with kind of maybe how efficient the model is, or maybe how detailed the model is. So you end up redoing huge chunks of it.
So we were discussing your job earlier, and it sounds like that kind of job can be really kind of taken just about anywhere. It's not necessarily something that's limited to, X location kind of thing. Are you able to kind of travel around a lot for the job, or?
Yeah, I mean, as a company, we travel a huge amount. I where I am and being how long I've been there, I'm tend to be more at the base in Loughborough, so um, I'm the one that tends to be the almost the single person, if you like, that ends up being the consistent person at base, that has the knowledge to communicate out to other people what's going on and making sure that the jobs are sent out right. Kind of manage a couple of teams, so uh, I don't travel as much as I used to. Uh, I've certainly did plenty of traveling with the company over the previous year, so that does give me a little bit more time to do the modding now. Uh, and but like I say, if the events industry is very very fast paced, and if something needs to happen on a Sunday, we'll do it on a Sunday. Like there is no kind of movement because an event is at a specific date, so you can't ring up your customer and say, "Oh, we haven't quite finished building that." Yet it's going to be delayed till next week. They'll be like, well, the event will be over by then. So your deadlines in the events industry are very much your deadlines. So you have to be prepared to, if something's delayed or goes wrong, that you have to put the time in. That's kind of the way that industry works, and it has some great rewards, but also can take up some time.
No, absolutely. So, do you like to travel?
Yeah, I certainly like doing it. Previously, seen loads of Europe. I think it can sound a little bit more glamorous than it is in our industry because might see all these wonderful places, but you see the hotel and the venue, and then the airport, and that's about it.
Hmm.
uh, I would like to spend some more time kind of going to some of these places and having more of a, you know, kind of social aspect, and viewing kind of the historical aspect of cities rather than just the places I've been working. But I also really love living in the UK. So as I said, like I've got, a love for Cornwall, and I'm sure I'll end up back there at some point. But there's so many little places within your local area in the UK that you don't know are there and can be very picturesque. And I'm as happy visiting some of those places than I am visiting a place in another country.
No, absolutely. And it's you just kind of reminded me of something, but you mentioned how you know when you're traveling for work, you're really just kind of in that immediate area kind of thing. You don't necessarily always get the time to kind of branch away kind of thing. Oftentimes you're either so tired from the day that you're just wanting to go back to the hotel and relax, or just whatever. You're not interested in like doing the extras kind of thing. And it
Yeah,
reminded me of when I was beginning to move to Atlanta in Georgia, and my company ended up shutting down the office I worked in here in Florida. And my girlfriend and I, my now wife, were talking about going up there to do a little bit of apartment hunting and things along those lines. And when we came up there, we actually got drug into the office at that point, and basically we were made to kind of check out the office and do the introductions and all that stuff. They heard that we were in the area, and when we had gone in there, we were just kind of, doing the rounds all day. And by the end of it, we are like, what, we're so exhausted because we're getting paraded around to department kind of thing. There was so many people who like either recognized us because of like video conferences or things like that. So they're like, oh, we get to see you in person and all that stuff, that
yeah,
we didn't want to do anything at the end of it. So
yeah,
when we got back from Georgia, we were living with like on my parents' property at the time, and we had gone inside to go say hi, and they're like, "Oh, well, what'd you get to do? Did you go and do and see anything and all that stuff?" And it's like, we saw the office and the hotel room. That's it.
yeah,
But yeah, no,
yeah.
it
It's
just go ahead.
yeah. Yeah. It's so often the way, and it's, unless you've got a specific day off or you're lucky enough to have that opportunity, it's yeah, you just get to that point and it's like, yeah, actually, that's all I saw. So I completely relate.
So, kind of similar to the previous question about your dream car, if you had unlimited resources, where would be your dream travel destination?
Oh, good question. I guess I'd love maybe to see somewhere like Rome. Not done that. Would be nice. I think there's there's so many options. It's a hard one for me, and um, like I say, we're really lucky in this part of the world that there's plenty around me. I love to spend more time in Scotland as well. Not my mum spends a huge amount of time up there because that's where she was brought up. And I find it, you can just get lost in the hills up there, and you feel like you're in a completely different world. You know, yeah, I'm not someone that needs to have it to be really hot, or I like architecture, I like the scenery, and there's so many options.
One of the things that I always wanted to do is I have always wanted to go to Europe, but specifically I want to go around and looking at, like you mentioned, the architecture that's around there, but specifically the churches that are around there, like the
Mhm.
massive cathedrals that they have over there. Some of them are absolutely breathtaking. It's incredible on how they were designed. I kind of stumbled across this passion back when I was in college, and it was one of those. I ended up taking a introductory to architecture class as part of like general studies, and it just so happened that they started showing off all the kind of, not all, but a lot of the churches that you can find over in Europe and whatnot, and it's like they're incredibly old and incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're lucky that we've got kind of loads around here. Uh, my well, sorry, my secondary school. Um, I was a chorister in Truro Cathedral in Cornwall, so spent a long time in the cathedral. And yeah, you could spend hours just looking at the ceiling, let alone anything else. Um, yeah, so I really enjoy that, and we're lucky that there's so many places kind of near us. Um, and yeah, because my understanding is you don't have the kind of same level of historic buildings over there
Oh yeah, I mean,
that you do in Europe.
you figure that this is a much younger country, so the amount of time that has
Yeah,
been able to pass, to create those, spectacular architectures has been significantly smaller than compared to like it really anywhere in Europe. But
yeah,
yeah, no, it's just and it's even more amazing, and I've gone on like several rants on the channel about how like technologies and stuff have evolved over time, but when you think about the way that some of those cathedrals and like old buildings were created, not through the kind of technology and the kind of things that we kind of take for granted nowadays, but through the actual like blood, sweat, and tears that it took to build those things back in those days is just it's incredible. Like it's just adds a whole
yeah.
new dynamic of understanding.
It's hard to imagine, isn't it?
Oh,
How they've created these.
it's incredible. Like to think that like anybody nowadays could just fathom the amount of effort and work that would have gone into that. Like there's nobody around today that could imagine being able to do it in that manner.
Yeah, yeah.
So what inspires or motivates you in life in general?
Um, I think you know, I I'm lucky that I really enjoy my work. This people say you must be so fortunate for having a job that you love, and I am fortunate, and because it's so varied and all of the different aspects of what we do, uh, and learning new things all the time. Like I say, I enjoy the kind of the new developments of 3D printing and creating new components, and um, quite a practical person. So anything, I've refurbished houses over the years, and trained to be an electrician. So um, all of those developments and future things really kind of find interesting, and I'm lucky that I get to do a large chunk of that through my work, um, which almost means then that I have more time to do my modding because I've fulfilled a lot of what I like to do during the day. So I guess that's where I'm slightly fortunate, whereas a lot of people, once they get home from work, they want to draw a line and switch off and do something completely different.
So let's say somebody's meeting you for the first time. What's one thing that they are generally surprised to find out about you?
Um, I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask some people what they find surprising about me. But uh, I think, um, I guess people tend to be surprised at how many different things I know and do. Kind of the knowledge of what I've had over the last kind of 20 years of certainly um, a lot of people say just ask Ross. Like if you don't know what's going on, ask Ross, and it's a complete lie that that I know everything, but for some reason there seems to be this facade that they think that if they don't know the answer, Ross will. So go and ask him. Uh, and I'm by no means kind of that knowledgeable, but it does seem to be an image that comes across for some reason.
Well, I mean, we've gotten to talk here for about an hour now, and it certainly seems like, based on what we've just talked about here tonight, that you are definitely amongst the jack of all trades kind of thing. Um,
Yeah,
you mentioned that you like to fix things, that you work on cars, specialize on like the BMWs, that you work on computers, that you've done DJing, so you've got like the technology aspect of things down, you've got the mechanical things down. I mean, yeah, I could see why people would kind of bring that up.
yeah, yeah. And I repair things as well at work. So equipment, lighting, sound equipment that's faulty. I deal with that kind of stuff as well. So, my dad threw me a CD player at Christmas and said, "This is broken," and I handed that back to him last week. There's things like that that happen all the time.
Oh wow. So not only were you like working on like board equipment on the CD player, or were you just kind of like looking at the bigger pictures kind of thing?
Uh, this one was actually relatively simple. It was just the draw mechanism. Kind of a few cogs had come misaligned, but yeah, can do circuit board work. Um, do a lot of soldering, component changing. Yeah, we end up doing that work, so it's something that I can do.
Wow, that's really impressive. It's actually funny because I just recently stumbled across a few like YouTube channels of people like businesses that will repair like PlayStation 5s and like Xbox, the latest Xbox. But like they'll actually break it down to like the core components, the motherboards and the actual CPUs, GPUs, the chips, like the whole nine yards that are available on them, and that they will just replace every little thing. They'll take what was a dead system and completely revamp it and make it work again. Um, so yeah, it's one of those that is definitely interesting, and knowing that kind of stuff
Mm.
too, it's like its own language all by itself.
Yeah, yeah, and I enjoy it. I'm certainly no expert, but I dabble in it, and we do kind of basic repairs, and you can meter out components that need resoldering and changing, and yeah, it's obviously a good feeling when you can take something that's broken and fix it, and I find that exciting. So
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those that I try to save money wherever I can, kind of thing. So I'll do my own car repairs, I'll do my own like home repairs, things like that. So it's just one of those where it's always a good, like you said, it's a good feeling that when you get to actually do them and finish them, and you can look back on it, it's like that was broken, now it's fixed, and it's because of this guy.
yeah, yeah, and there might have been a lot of kind of stress and cursing in the middle, but at the end, it's exciting. Yeah,
Oh yeah, it's one of those that whenever I'm working on uh really anything, the my wife knows it's like, she needs to stay away, she needs to keep the kids away. It's like daddy's going to have some frustrating times here, so let's give him his space.
yeah.
So what's one of your biggest fears that keeps you up at night?
Ooh, biggest fears. I don't know. I'm quite laid back, so I kind of take life with a fairly kind of see what I get. And I don't. Um, I think I tend to look at a lot of things fairly positively. So I don't know if I have like huge fears. there's plenty out there to be feared from, but I'm just the kind of guy that will take every day as comes. If life's hard or something's a challenge, we're still here. Let's just crack on and do what we can, and it is what it is.
No, absolutely. Do you own any pets?
Yes, you might have seen the cats crawling behind me. Yeah, there's two cats here, both of which have now decided to go to sleep. But yeah, I've had several cats here over the years. Always loved dogs as well. It's just with my work life, I'd struggle to kind of give them the attention that they'd need and the walk in that they'd need because I might be called away for a job last minute, and cats, if you leave some food down, they'll do their own thing. They're their own boss. Um, but the dog's going to want to be with you and want to be walked. So, but yeah, love animals. Always had them at home. Always had cats and dogs. Obviously, my dad's a farmer, so the larger animals outside and kind of smaller ones inside.
Okay. And you had mentioned earlier about watching content like on YouTube and stuff like that, and specifically it's like the kind of the building kind of things. Uh, who are some of your favorite creators?
From within farm sim or the kind of
We'll start with outside of Farm Sim. Like, who is it that you
yeah.
tend to go out and regularly watch on like YouTube or any of the other social medias out there?
Um, I tend to be fairly broad and look at specific topics rather than follow specific channels. But I know kind of Blender Bob is one that I used to follow, who's really good at like specific parts of Blender. Definitely recommend that channel. Um, I use set of tools for Maya. There's a guy called Malcolm341. He's created a load of scripts for Maya to make modeling easier. Um, so I've got all of his scripts and all of his tutorials around the scripts. That saves me so much time, and would definitely recommend checking him out if anyone's in the 3D world. But yeah, beyond that, it's kind of I'm trying to learn a new thing. So if I'm trying to improve, like I was saying earlier, hoses or skin meshes, I'll just Google that and I'll just watch 4 or 5 different people and how they might do it, and then piece that together to see how I can do it better.
And what about inside the Farm Sim community? Who are some of your favorite creators?
Um, yeah, I mean, I talked to kind of a few people on Discord and bounce ideas off each other. I've spoken to 4D modding a bit over the years. There's kind of FS Miner as well. Spoken to him a little bit. There's there's so much out there for anyone that's interested in modding. Like people are good about sharing a lot of it. Um, but yeah, it's again, it's just Google the topic that you're interested in and see what you find, and yeah, plenty of content.
And if you could meet any three people, who would they be and why? And we're talking anybody from past, present, favorite famous actors or historical like leaders, anything along those lines. Who would those three people be and why?
Um, I do find these questions a little bit challenging, but I think I've always had a bit of a man crush on Ryan Reynolds. Don't know why, just think he's a funny guy. Would love to meet him. I mean, they say never meet your heroes though, so you might, never know. And then I think kind of beyond that, I don't know. I think let's say I'm interested in kind of the Bond films, so maybe meeting Daniel Craig would be another one, just because I think he's a great actor, and actually, to a lot of the stuff that he's doing in his post Bond stuff with like Knives Out and things.
Mhm.
I think he's a really good actor. Um, and I guess the third one, because of my passionate love of JCB, that it'd be a privilege to meet Lord Banford, um, and understand more about him, and uh, he's created this huge company that's a success in worldwide out of the UK, from 1945 till now, and I think his family creating that, it's a kind of big engineering success. I was fortunate enough to do a factory tour a couple of years ago. I found that very, very exciting.
So, so what did you get like in that tour? What did you get to like do and experience?
Yes, I got to see kind of a couple of the production lines. So everything from the raw steel coming in to the laser cutting, welding, spraying, and then seeing some of the kind of JCB backhoe loaders at the end of the production line. Um, got to see a little bit of the office and where the designers work. Uh, got to see the door of where the top secret stuff was, but obviously couldn't see in. But it's exciting to have a top secret area. Um, and then yeah, we had like a lunch and got to speak to some people at the end of it as well. But the kind of the scale of the process and was good to see. It was very interesting.
I mean, I could only imagine because it's one of those where you you can see a tractor in real life and you get kind of a breath of scale of the kind of size differential between you and that set of equipment. Now imagine the equipment that is building that equipment kind of
Yeah,
thing.
there's some of the presses and bits like that are huge. I think on the flip side though, there's quite a lot of the processes that you might think are way more automated than they are. Um, particularly with something like with JCB, there's still a huge number of people that are welding by hand. It's not all done by robots. There's a lot of moving around by hand. There's a lot of people in the factory, and a lot that's going on, and I think in some ways the scale of it and what was going on, you were like, wow, this is huge. But also on the flip side, you were like, part of you was expecting to see just a load of components and a load of robots screwing some stuff together, but it's quite nice to see the manual aspect still there.
Oh, absolutely. And that's very oftentimes too, you can kind of rely on that a bit more than say something that is just tacked together with, the machines and all that stuff is, machines, they oftentimes can do a good job, but it's one of those where you can really see like the art, the craft and the artistry that is like being able to lay a weld and do it like by hand kind of thing. It by itself is an art.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's you could tell that from there, and these guys are doing a great job, and I just hope that they continue that going, and that new people come into the industry and keep the same skill set. There's plenty of worries, I guess, over certain crafts that might get lost.
So you've mentioned a few times the James Bond films being ones that you really enjoy. Now, be honest with us. How much did you wish that you were James Bond at that point in time when you saw that top secret door, being able to just sneak off and whittle your way on into there?
Yeah, I think it's kind of every boy's dream, isn't it, to be able to um, to be something top secret, or do or have access to something like that. So yeah, very much so.
And by chance, did the Bond music start playing in the back of your head? Because I only ask
I
because I
mean,
know mine would.
yeah, I'm not sure it did in that exact moment, but I could definitely, it definitely could have done. Um, yeah, e- every part of me wanted to open that door. Put it that way.
The biggest exercise in self-control you have had in your lifetime was up in that point, wasn't
Yes, yeah, pretty much.
it? So, what was your first paying job?
On the farm. So let's say I brought up on a. So my dad runs a beef farm, and the business runs beef and dairy. My first job was kind of from a young age was helping out on the farm, and as soon as I could legally be paid, I was paid for what I did. Um, but yeah, obviously, essentially, you start. You know, when you're brought up on a farm, you're helping out from as soon as you physically can. You know, by about 12, you're kind of there. You've got regular jobs. You're out there. You know, might be feeding the calves, might be helping scrape up the yard, um, bedding the animals, feeding the animals. Uh, Um, so yeah, I did that for all through school, all through um, most of my time. I went to boarding school in secondary school, so had less time to do it then. But all the summers, you know, as soon as I was broken up on summer and back on the farm, that was where I got my pocket money. That's where I got my earnings. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
And what was your least favorite job to do around the farm?
Um, I think it was probably more dependent on the weather. So like, you know, if you're scraping up the yard or something, it's, you know, you know, I quite like making it clean and tidy, and actually I find that quite therapeutic in a way, even though it's some people might find that boring. I find it actually quite therapeutic to do something like that. But if it's absolutely chucking it down, it's freezing cold, so you're there in all of your, you know, waterproofs from head to toe, it can be pretty miserable. And that's the thing with farming is it doesn't matter what the weather's doing or what day it is. Every day, with animals, certainly, you've got to do the same routine and the same things. So whether it's Christmas Day, whether it's the middle of the summer, it's still got to be done.
And what was the one job that you looked forward to doing the most?
Definitely anything that involved getting in the tractor. So you know, as soon as the particularly at the younger age, obviously, there's certain jobs that you're not trusted to do, um, and anything that you could step into and be like, "Oh, I've got this opportunity to like, you know, go mowing." Well, I haven't had that opportunity before, whatever it might be. Um, Anything that was had that opportunity. I spent quite a long time doing the raking, you know, they call it different things in different countries, but bringing the grass together, which we call raking, swathing, if you like. Yeah, that was kind of my summer job. I was the man on the rake, so I used to really look forward to that.
And what kind
And
of? Sorry, go ahead.
so I was just going to say, and particularly on my dad's farm, obviously it's different tractors, so you always hoped that you'd get like the John Deere, or you know, the higher spec one. It would be like, and then when you're really busy, like, oh, I've been left with the one that's not got air conditioning again.
Oh man. So what kind of tractors did your father have on his farm?
Yeah, so um, well, it depends how far back we go, but kind of really early years had a lot of Massey Ferguson, so your old kind of 135s, 35s, the what are now considered like proper classics. So that's had those for years. Then they had the early Fords, um, and then that then developed into kind of New Hollands in the 90s, and then kind of 2000s they moved on to onto John Deere's, um, and have mainly stayed with John Deere ever since. They find they're kind of the best performance, most reliable. The drivers enjoy them. Um, I know they have just ordered a new Massey, which uh, some people are buzzing about and some people are a bit cautious about, but we'll see how they get on. Um, but yeah, they've tended to also keep some of the slightly older John Deeres. They were very nervous about moving to the new kind of 6M, 6R series at the time. They now have had to do that, but um, yeah, kind of the 6930 was the tractor of choice.
Gotcha. So I'm actually rather surprised by that answer because I would have presumed that seeing that again the Mod Hub page is pretty much loaded with JCBs, I would have just assumed that oh yeah JCB here, JCB there, but no, it's so.
Yeah,
Where
I
did
think
this passion for JCB come from?
yeah. I mean, so well, not always had, but so he's had JCB telehandlers for several years. So there was kind of a bit of a love of JCB there. So um, he runs the pivot steers, so the 320s and he doesn't have 420, but the kind of those style of telehandler, which he's had since pretty much since JCB started making one, um, which was originally a Map Bro. I don't know if you ever heard of a Map Bro. I don't know if
Mm-mm.
it might just be a UK only, but that was kind of a company that existed years ago that revelation the pivot steer telehandler for the small farmer, if you like, and that's what led to the JCBs. But I don't know why I particularly fell into JCBs. I think they're a big UK brand. I'm a little bit patriotic that I would like to do stuff that is in this country and that I'm passionate about. Um, I like their history. Um, I think their products are great. I use JCB products kind of in the event world as well. So obviously we use a lot of JCB telehandlers in the event world. We have a little telly truck in our warehouse, which I really get on with well. Um, and I think the John Deere is such a big part of the game already, uh, and there's a lot of other established modders that were heavily involved with John Deere already, that I felt that I couldn't really add anything there. So that was an aspect as well for me that if other people hadn't been creating those modding, I think I would have gone into it. Certainly when I first started modding, a lot of the adjustments I was making to my own tractors were John Deere's. Um, and then I guess I saw a little bit of a hole in the market, if you like, for the JCB stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's all I have for the first segment there. So let's go ahead to the chat and see if they have any questions for you. So I do see one here from Ken Adlam. Ken, thank you so much for your question. He asks, what sort of mods do you specialize in?
Yeah, so JCB is a big part of it. And then I tend to work with a couple of other UK manufacturers. So I work with Bailey Trailers and I work with Taylor Attachments, so the big two. They uh, are both companies that weren't licensed brands in the game that I've brought into the game by meeting them in person at events and trying to get them involved. In fact, Taylor Attachments approached me originally and said, we want to get in the game. Can you help? So that was exciting. Um, and I'm currently working on some new UK manufacturers, trying to get them licensed up, get them involved, um, and I will continue to work on JCB stuff because I love doing it. Um, yeah, so UK manufacturers, but I do also do other things that I find useful. I've got the pickup hitch for the foragers, which is just a tiny little thing that I felt that was something the game could add. And I did the cranes, which was a bit probably outside what I would normally do. Um, Again, I just thought, let's make something massive and see if that's fun. So I did. So created a big crane. Thought this could be exciting, and a lot of people ask me for construction-based mods, and it's not where my passion is, but uh, it was something I thought would be fun to do.
And it's actually funny because the Bailey Balin Palette trailer is actually one of my favorite in-game trailers. There's just something about it that's like the best kind of like size to carrying capacity ratio for me. So it's one of my almost always go-to trailers is that one. That in the lift Bailey trailer. I forget what
The
that
high
one's
lift,
called.
yeah,
The high lift. Yep. Both of those two, I absolutely adore those mods because the high lift in particular, because I can actually load implements out in the field. I don't have to like bring the implement back in and then drive back out there. I can just have a trailer parked on the side, and if I want to just throw some seeds into the seeder, just dump right into it. And it works perfectly. So definitely one of my
yeah. I
favorites.
absolutely love the Bailey stuff. It's great to see it in person, which I saw again this week. But like I say, I think the proportion is a big part of it. I've just finished a low loader, and I think people will find it the same. That it's the the maneuverability of most low loaders on smaller maps are a nightmare. Like getting them around corners because of where the wheels are and how they steer, and I think this one that's coming out that people will find they can get a nice big machine on the back of it, but it's still super maneuverable. So I think it's just got that right proportion.
That's awesome. Let's see. Ken, thank you so much for your question. Looks like we actually got another one from Ken. It says, have you ever thought of making a supermarket mod? Because I noticed that there are not many of them on modded maps.
Um, was that a supermarket mod? Did you
Yep.
say?
Yep.
Yeah. I tend to only do vehicles. I'm open to other things. I've always been interested in doing more objects and maps. I think it's just where my skill set currently is. If I now have a really good process that I can knock up a simple vehicle quite quickly. In order to get involved with objects and maps, I'm going to have to learn that from scratch, and it's something I want to do on the side, but I wouldn't want to commit to anything until I'd kind of worked out what was involved with it, if you like.
Gotcha. We got another one from Ken. Says, what is your favorite map you consider playing on currently?
Um, yeah, I currently mainly playing on Kinlag, just because it's kind of a Giants based game, which makes it easy for me to do the testing on. Um, some of the modded maps are harder to test mods on because it may have slightly different errors. Um, but Saxingham is a brilliant map. Really love that, and I'm looking forward to Oxygen David's new map that should be coming out relatively soon. I'll definitely be giving that a try.
Excellent, excellent. Again, Ken, thank you so much for all your questions there. We got one from Reaver Time Todd. He asked, is it because yellow and black is your favorite color combo? Question mark.
I think yellow and black is a great combo. Uh, yeah, they do stand out. I think their branding's really good, to be fair. And everyone knows a JCB when it drives past from that distinctive color. Um, yeah, I said, I think certainly like a fast track or something like that in Cornwall, uh, it's not. So anyone that doesn't know Cornwall basically is quite a small area, and the roads are very narrow. So your equipment has to be relatively small, and certainly anything like a fast track, the speed that they can do is irrelevant in Cornwall because you're going around these tiny little narrow lanes, so you can't go faster than 50 miles an hour anyway. Um, so kind of a fast track isn't really a huge advantage. So um, I think yeah, it's in answer to the question. I don't think my love of JCB is purely from the colours, but I think it's a great statement.
Well, and it's pretty funny because I do think there's some kind of validity in that question. What I mean by that is that there's a lot of people out there who can look at a color just by or look at a tractor or a company by its branding and be like, that's the company I like. So like John Deere, everybody knows the green and yellow, it's just iconic. You know,
Hmm.
Case, you got the red and black. You got, JCB, the yellow and black. Like people kind of almost build their identity around that kind of, I guess, marketing kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think that there's definitely some truth to that. Yeah, to where there's that kind of, I guess, for lack of better way of putting it, color loyalty. If that makes sense.
yeah, and I think it looks great on the screen as well. Like the those fast tracks, and if you pair them up with certain implements, well, any of the brands really, if you've some of the combinations of implements and tractor, and the colours, it just looks like a good thing.
So, out of curiosity, what is your opinion on the WFT there in game?
I think, uh, yeah, I downloaded it briefly. I haven't used it since. I think it was, uh, I don't know. It was a nice thing to add, but I'm not really bothered by it. Um, I think the thing in real life that Guy Martin did was awesome, and I think it was a cool thing for JCB to do, and they've always been interested in land speed records and things, and they did the one before that, with the fastest diesel engine, and you know all of those kind of innovations and pushing the boundaries. I think is exciting, but it doesn't particularly offer a lot in game, um, in my opinion.
I 100% agree with you. It's one of those that in real life and concept, it's really cool. Like as I mentioned before, Top Gear, guy. I enjoy big engines and whatever they come in, and you slap a monster engine in a monster vehicle. I'm back to being a school kid, and I'm like, yes, sign me up.
Yeah,
Throwing it in game though, yeah, kind of. It was kind of. Unimpressed. I guess it'll be the nicest way I can put it.
yeah. Hopefully it didn't take them much resource because they could have put it into something else.
Yes, yes, absolutely. All right, so that is the last question I see from the chat. So let's go ahead and go on to the second segment here called Meat and Potatoes, emphasis on potatoes. This is where we're going to get to know you for more of your content and what it is that you do within the Farm Sim community. So, do you currently only produce content for Farm Sim or do you work on other games as well?
Yeah, currently it's just exclusively farm sim. I've looked at other games and dabbling, but I think I've kind of so invested in the farm sim community, and I'm enjoying that so much that if I was to look at exploring other options, that I think it would jeopardize that, and I wouldn't want to do that at this stage. Um, you know, Maybe I'll get to the point where I feel like I've got a great library in farm sim, and therefore I might look at other things. But The other attraction to Farm Sim is my love of farming. I haven't started modding to make any money or to because I can do the skill set. I've done it because of my love of farming. So, um, you know, if there was another farming opportunity game, maybe, but that's kind of where my passion is.
I gotcha. So you mentioned earlier that you've been playing Farm Sim since about 2011, and then you started your kind of modding career in the was it the 2019s? Is about what you were saying?
Yeah, yeah, 20, yeah, yeah. I don't think I played with the game particularly before 2019 from a modding point of view.
So in that time, between the 2011s and going all the way up to now, we've seen things like features come and go. And very oftentimes when a new game like FS25, still being newer, when they are being rolled out, everybody features or focuses on what the new feature is. So in this case, it was things like the fog and god rays and the ground deformation, all this stuff, and hype really gets built up over those things. But because you've been such a long established player, I'm curious, what is the one kind of feature that has existed, whether it's in game or in mods, that was in earlier iterations, but is no longer like available to us in the current FS25?
Yeah. Um, I mean the things that come to mind the most are maybe just starting to creep into FS25, but um, so certainly I remember using a version of manual attach very early on, which I think now is back into FS25, but that was something that I would have thought of by now that Giants would have implemented, and they haven't. You know, certainly in 19, I was like, oh, surely, in 22 they'll bring this into the base game, um, and they didn't. I think seasons which exists now is not the same as the seasons that we had uh, as a mod. Um, and I think they gave it a good go, but I doesn't have the same feel and the same features that. So I do miss that, having seasons from 19 as a mod. They're probably the two that are standing out to me off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more. Um, yeah, I
So,
think unfortunately a lot of the. Go on, sorry.
oh no, no, after you.
Yeah, I think unfortunately a lot of the kind of really good mods then get superseded with partly in game, and therefore the modder backs off because it's been partly fulfilled. Uh, and then I think you end up losing a little bit of how successful the original mod was.
I couldn't agree with you more. People who are familiar with my channel know that I have gone on extended rants about how much I loved the Seasons mod from back in FS19, and seeing those kind of features that were available in Seasons then versus Seasons now, it's heartbreaking to say the least. Like going out and tedding grass to be able to make it into hay kind of thing, being able to leave it out in the sun to finalize its creation into hay. I thought that was amazing. Not having that in game is crushing to me. Failed germination, things along those lines. There were so many things that were involved with the Seasons mod that made it so revolutionary for FS19, that is the one thing I always point to, is just like it got peeled back so hard to now it's just weather. And it's just like
Yeah,
it's a shame. It's a shame in my
yeah.
opinion.
It, it is a shame, and there's so many game mechanics that could exist, um, they were talking about this at Llama this week, but that um, there's farming is hard and is very weather dependent, and the game doesn't really truly reflect when the weather doesn't go as planned, that your crop's not going to be as good, that that parts of your field might die off completely. Like there's so many mechanics there that would make it so much more realistic and so much more challenging as well for the player.
That is another aspect that I've gone into on so many different occasions is the one thing I was so excited about with FS25 was the kind of natural disasters. You know, the ability of not being able to just follow the procedures and still something going wrong kind of thing. That's what I liked
Hmm.
about the kind of germination failures and things like that in FS19 was that you could follow every single thing by the book and then all of a sudden boom, just it didn't go as planned. Something happened, it's
Yeah.
outside of your control kind of thing. So it's just those kind of gameplay aspects I always thought was really fun. And I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't feel that that's been kind of like honed in as well as it probably should have, in my opinion.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah.
So, what's one thing that you never expected when you started creating mods, but has kind of come to fruition? Some examples that I give are like the sense of community, any kind of unexpected backlash. What's one thing that you never expected happened but did?
Yeah, I think for starters, I'd never expected to be a modder. Like I said, where I started was altering the own products, and then it was actually the community that I was talking to a few people at the time that I shared. I think it was the pickup hitch, kind of with a few people privately, and they were like, you need to get this out there. Like people will use this, um, and I was amazed with how many people then found it useful. I guess I kind of maybe thought that I was a bit niche in the way that I played farm sim and the realistic aspect, and that maybe other people just play it more like a normal game, uh, and aren't interested in making it more tuned to their reality and my upbringing, and so I found that really surprising. I don't know why I found it surprising because it kind of makes sense, but um, yeah, that there were other people that were trying to play it the same way that I was trying to play it. And then yeah, I think both the love and a little bit of the hate that you get uh, from being a mod on the community. I think there's way more love for the mods than I ever expected. I never expected um, people to enjoy them as much as they do, and unfortunately, you do get a few people that slip in that love to have something to say that maybe shouldn't have something to say. But I think certainly, so I went through a period where I think there was quite a lot of negativity. I think there has been an improvement in that. I think the community are doing a good job of standing up for people's pages and other people saying, look, if you've got something too bad to say, don't say it on this page. Go and do it in your own time. So I think I appreciate people helping with that, I guess. And I think there's a great community there, and it's it's special. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those where I've said this on multiple occasions, but Farm Sim is by far and away one of the best communities I've ever belonged to. And I belong to so many different communities over the years that, finding Farm Sim and being comfortable with doing what it is that I do here, I never thought that I would actually be in this position where I'd be, running a channel, doing something like to this scale kind of thing. So it was one of those where the community like yes, there are those bad eggs out there. They do exist. We see them every once in a while, but they are in the such minority that thankfully it's one of those, for the most part, I think most people can just be like kind of hands off and it's like, not a big deal for the most part.
Yeah, yeah, I think yeah, it's again, I'm fairly laid back about it as well. Uh, I think as a modder, you need to just sometimes not say anything if things are getting a little bit heated, and it will resolve itself. I think unfortunately some people get it take it very personally, and then it can blow up. But certainly from my experience, I think there's a great community out there. Appreciate all of the comments that people leave um, on the pages, and I'm just happy that people are enjoying the content that I'm creating.
And I can understand like a modder taking things very personal, because it's one of those like, well, there's multiple asset or multiple reasons why I could understand a modder taking like a comment, really negatively, taking it personal. I mean, number one, this is something that you're doing for free. There's no expectation of you being able to turn around and monetize this or anything along those lines. There are some avenues that are available, but they're few and far between. And unless you're like really, really, really good, then those avenues tend to be kind of closed off to the majority. But it not only that, but you're doing this, like, especially somebody like you who's purposely trying to put everything out into the mod hub. I'm not familiar of really much of anything on your mods list that is strictly PC only, or that's kind of held behind, on a page or anything
There's
along those lines.
Yeah, there's only one mod, and that was for FS19, and that was because at the time you weren't allowed duplicates on the mod hub. So because someone else had made a 320S, I couldn't make a 320S because one already existed. That was something that Giants then dropped, which was I was really grateful of, because there was a really back in FS19 there was a huge rush to get your mod out, because if you didn't get there first, you didn't have the opportunity. So you'd put all that work in, and then you get to the week before you were ready to release, and someone would release it just before you, and that meant that you missed out. So you ended up rushing stuff to release it early, which meant it was buggy. It was not to the standard it should be, um, just so that you could get in there first. And I think that wasn't working. So I'm glad they changed.
Oh, and I remember those days too when things would release like really early, they would be glitchy and things would just not work the way they were intended to. And unfortunately, I think that made it like to where a lot of the modders caught a lot of unnecessary heat from the community. Because most I would argue that probably the majority of the community had no idea something like that was going on, because the majority of the people are probably just interacting possibly with the mod hub page. I mean, really, they're probably going to be just interacting with the mod hub that's within the game itself. But really, outside of that, I mean, I think that people like myself and others that will be watching content, consuming it, and all that stuff might be in the minority, to where we are gonna like pay attention to what's on like somebody like yourself's like your Facebook page and getting the updates and all that stuff. So it's one of those like only certain a subsection of the community is going to kind of be in the know of what's going on along those lines. So the unnecessary blowback that I'm sure a lot of modders got, because hey, if I don't get this out now, I'm never going to get it out. And to your point, you're going to spend all that time trying to get this thing out, and it's not going to be, one, it's not going to be up to your standards, but two, you're having to sit there and cut every corner you can just to be able to say that, okay, now I can at least work on it to make it to the standard I want to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you could then do updates as often as you want afterwards. So you were cutting features and not doing animations and just trying to get it out as quickly as possible. And yeah, that wasn't working. And as you say, Um, particularly when I go to events and things, there's only actually a very small percentage of people who know who RossN Mods is, but as soon as you say, "Oh, he's the guy that makes the JCBs," they're like, "Oh, okay." So, not everyone is interacting with the socials or will know the context behind it or anything that I share. Which is why things like this are really good to share what I do and who I am. Because a lot of people don't know. Um, and same with some of the comments you get on your mods or everyone wants a new thing, so you get a lot of comments of, can you make one of these, can you make one of these, can you make one of these, and it's like, yes, and uh just having a little bit of appreciation that you've asked me to commit 150 hours of my time to create something. Not It's not something I can turn around in a day. um and having just communicating that, and the community are really good at that, and other people are coming and saying, give the guy a break, like he's doing a huge amount. So yes, love your suggestions, but kind of don't be too offended if I say I can't tell you if and when it'll ever happen, because it's a lot of time.
And that actually brings me back to the point I was making earlier in the you know a modder becoming offended over like negative blowback and stuff like that. So I was initially hitting on, this is a passion project first and foremost. So you're putting all your effort into making something that is really, you have no understanding or idea of being able to find that crystal ball to know how it's going to be received, kind of thing. And then on top of that, because it takes so much time, so much effort, so much knowledge, like all this stuff that you need to have as a prerequisite to even get your foot in the door, let alone get it out on the mod hub and doing all that stuff. Um, yeah, I can completely understand somebody being like, you know what, I'm getting all this negative, comments and all this stuff and just taking it to heart, kind of thing. That's actually kind of why I've kind of altered my critiquing very, very, very early on. Um, I wouldn't say I was harsh or I was like un like mean or anything like that, but I was more pointed at like pointing out things and like this is something that, like, how do I describe it? I was very much like matter of fact kind of thing. Like like very
Yeah.
almost blunt. But um I very much over the, time that I've been doing the channel, when discussing mods and stuff like that, I very much softened my approach. One, because I don't want it to ever be misinterpreted that I'm anything less than grateful and appreciative to everybody out there like yourself who's putting in this effort that I can't do. Um, and on top of that, it's one of those that you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, kind of thing. So if you are taking a more measured approach in your uh, kind of feedback kind of thing, then and this has happened to me numerous times. I've had many creators reach out to me and say, "Hey, I saw your map tour. Hey, I saw your comments on this. Um, thank you. Greatly appreciate you pointing it out. I'm gonna work on making those changes," kind of thing. Um, so, like I said, it's one of those that if people could comport themselves and be like more constructive than anything else, it, I'm sure, makes your life and the rest of the modding community out there a lot easier, a lot nicer to be around in the community. But also one of those where it's gonna encourage a more positive interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm actually surprised sometimes if kind of how to phrase this. So it but bugs happen, like things are missed. There's a very short period of time that you spend testing a product because you're constantly developing new products. And I'd actually welcome more feedback for a lot of the stuff that I do. I've done some updates recently of products that have been out 6 months, and I've found a little bug with it. And I was like, it's really weird that nobody else has said that. And I think um, that maybe sometimes people are worried about how that's going to be received. Of like, they do appreciate what I do, and they're like, oh, I don't really want to tell them that there's a little bug here because he might get offended. Um, and I think it's just communicating that in a way that is that you might know this already, just letting you know, found a little thing, and phrasing it in a way that's friendly. And I'm sure any modder will receive that graciously. And if they don't, that's kind of on them, as long as you're being polite about it. I do have a bug tracker on my website to try and encourage people to, if they want to just want to be the specifics of the bug, so they don't want to worry about how it might be received and just make it purely factual. I'll then point people to that, because then you haven't got to have that awkward conversation. It's just, it's a bug, it's something I've noticed, it's in the list. So I'd encourage people to use that, because I do want to know. I don't play the game very often, so there is things I miss, and I want to make the mod as good and as accurate as possible. So yeah, do let me know if you find anything.
Absolutely. So, would you consider Farm Sim to be your favorite game?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I think it was a favorite game of mine before I did modding and before I do what I do now. If I didn't mod, I'm 100% sure I would have still be playing it. I don't know what it is. I think it's my love of farming. I think it's just something you can get lost in. I think it's just such a good switch off. And um, I guess sometimes I get drawn in it too much, maybe, um, because it can be addictive. But yeah, definitely my top game. I've played very little other games now. I used to play loads and loads of other games, and this is now my pretty much my sole focus. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't change it.
So, one thing that I've noticed since starting the channel and kind of doing this as a project to be able to create content and entertain and doing all that stuff, um, one thing I've noticed is that what I would have taken my time in just investing in playing the game, enjoying myself, and just kind of doing whatever it is I wanted to do at that time, my time is completely shifted around producing content for the channel. So it's incredibly rare that I actually just get to sit down and play and enjoy the game. I'm either doing the map tours or the updates or like agribusiness, farm sim talk, whatever the case may be. And it's one of those that just can't invest the time in actually enjoying the game. Do you find yourself in kind of a similar situation?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I don't play it as much as I'd like to. I'd like to play it a bit more. I think I need to make a bit more time, both a from a personal enjoyment, but secondly, from checking the content more. Um, I think once you start a specific mod as well, like until that's completed or near completion, you're just solely focused on pushing it along, and trying to get it out there for people as soon as possible, but making it be right. Um, and yeah, I spent the biggest amount of time I spent playing the game was before Giants Editor was out for the new game. So there's a period of a couple of weeks, I think. I was lucky enough to get the game a week early before release, and that's the most I've played it was in that period. And actually, maybe I need to, when I get to the end of a mod, and say, actually, this week I'm not gonna start the next mod until next week. I'm just gonna play with what I've got for this week, and then I'll start a new project.
So, one of the things that I've been kind of well, I've been kind of discovering here lately is that because of the lack of actually playing and enjoying the game, um, the kind of content or the uh, I guess you could call it the creativity of things kind of becomes stagnant, for lack of a better word. Um, and it's one of those where uh, because I don't have time to be able to kind of like really explore and like do other things outside of coming up with like a storyline or whatever the case may be. So I don't feel like those creative juices can flow as naturally if I were just playing the game rather than um like trying to sit there and like matter of factly kind of go through the process that I've developed up into this point. Do you feel that a similar situation may occur for you or for other modders? Is that due to the lack of actually playing and enjoying the game that you could be potentially running into some uh, almost like self-imposed roadblocks?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It was, actually just before Christmas, I had a little bit of time to play the game, and there were certain aspects of it and some features that had been in FS25 from the start, and I wasn't even aware of, because I hadn't tiny little things, but um, and and actually just playing it for a little bit and going, oh, okay, I could do this thing, and kind of reset a little bit of what I felt I could add, and again playing some of my own mods and going, um, this thing I haven't implemented, and I didn't really consider that until I've been playing it myself and gone, yeah, that would be really good. Um, I think some of the kind of forestry stuff I wasn't as familiar with. So when I was looking at the swing shovel and the those kind of mods that I'd done, I was like, there's so many more aspects that I could incorporate here, uh, and yeah, I kind of completely agree that I'm sure that there's other things, like the pickup hitch mod. That the first mod I created was a simple thing to fix what I felt was a problem. And I think if I played a little bit more, there's probably way more little mods and things that I could add value that if I was playing, I'd really appreciate, uh, and kind of they're almost the most exciting mods in a way to me is something that is a bit more of a game changer than just a new version of the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it is just something that I've personally been noticing. Switching from the kind of playing lifestyle that I had prior to the channel to the now more creative lifestyle. That's the kind of self-imposed blockages in creativity. I felt like I was almost to a degree more creative when I played more than when I'm kind of trying to structure things around it. But I'm also doing a lot more detail work than I ever have, when I was just playing kind of thing. So it's one of those like I guess it's like your point, it's easier to find those gaps where you can hopefully fill them in with something when you're playing the game rather than just going through the routine. So,
Yeah. I think I find it hard to keep up as well on other mods and maps that are released. There's loads of content creators like yourself that do a great job of communicating lots of things, but you've still got to find time to watch the channel, and um, it's there's I think I will probably spend a bit more time doing some YouTube content of kind of I quite like doing the little montages of things I've created, And actually, if I spend some time doing that and finding some nice maps and 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 creating some nice imagery, that again that will help with finding those gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm looking at the time now, and we are at the 2 hour mark. I do have additional questions, so if you want to stick around, we can. If not, if you've got a hard stop or anything, we can start wrapping things up.
No, I'm completely flexible, so yeah, feel free.
Okay, then yeah, we'll go ahead and keep on going. So earlier you mentioned Lama and going out to actually enjoy the festivities that were going on there. What were some of the things that you're able to do over there?
Yeah, so Llama's a 2-day show that we have over in the UK. So the show itself is kind of the biggest machinery show. So it's all indoors. It's in an exhibition hall, so you get to see most of the brands, um, kind of whether that's UK or Europe or whatever. There's a few big brands that don't attend, so John Deere don't go and Class don't go. But apart from that, it's pretty much everyone else. Um, kind of John Deere and Class pulled out many years ago. I think just the cost of putting it on is huge. But as someone that goes, it's a great opportunity to see all the products. They always put on a great display. You can talk to the manufacturers directly. You get to talk to the kind of the right people, if you like. So it's manufacturer level rather than dealer level. So you're talking to the people that are making the product, not necessarily the people selling the product. Um, and yeah, I go with my dad, so he's going around looking at it from a farming perspective, and then I'm going around looking at it from a modding perspective, and between us, it's a pretty good duo to getting to talk to people. Um, and I've been really surprised at how many people that I talk to play Farm Sim. So, talk to a guy on a stand, and he's might be um, working for a particular manufacturer, and I'm like, "Are you aware of Farming Simulator? I create content for that," and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I play that." And most people I talk to, well, nearly everyone is aware of the game, and several people that I spoke to actively play it, including farmers, people that are farming all day, every day. So I found that really interesting. Uh, and then kind of Farmer Cop put on a an after show day one event in the evening for an opportunity of people to get together. So there's some content creators, there was some modders, and there was some people in the community that got together. Um, can't remember exactly how many people were there, but something like 100 people got together, and we had some dinner and had a chat, and yeah, it was a good time. Got a chance to talk to lots of people.
Well, that sounds like fun. I mean, just being able to go to an event like that, number one, take in all the festivities and kind of see what's all being shown there, but then being able to meet up with other creators within the space and being able to kind of, you know, meet everyone and kind of do the whole meet and greet thing, that had to have been exciting.
Yeah, it was really exciting. They've done it for so they've Gi- um, Giant Software themselves came to Llama last year and the year before. So the first year they put on a little meet and greet thing at the event, and then post that, Pharmacop's kind of continued that on himself. He's done a great job. Like he puts a huge amount of money into putting it on, kind of personally, and he doesn't, and there's no kind of no support from Giants for that. But so kind of big shout out for him for doing that and giving people the opportunity to get together. And they say they're gonna continue it every year and keep it growing because it's a great opportunity and people love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And earlier this week, one of your mods actually released the Taylor Attachments Fortis. Um, Now, did you actually have a chance to like, were was Taylor Attachments actually out there at Llama?
Yeah, so they had a much bigger stand this year, so he's doing really well. It's a guy called Mark who runs it, and he's such a good guy. He's got so much passion in his products, and he does really really well. So he approached me about the 43,000 tail end of last year and said, let's do a joint launch. So he launched it on last Monday, and released the mod on Monday as well. So we kind of both got it out in there at the same time, which was exciting because um, people could go and look at the physical product at Llama, and they could also then go home and play it in Farm Sim, and that was a really good opportunity to be able to do that. And I'm grateful for Mark for giving me the opportunity to be involved. And yeah, he's uh, he's just growing and growing. I'm sure that name will get bigger and bigger. He started off selling some stuff on eBay years ago, and his business has just grown from there. So um, yeah, great guy.
That's incredible. I love hearing those kind of stories where, somebody started out with not much and just kind of a almost like a passion and a dream and just like drove it home kind of thing. Those are some of the best kind of stories to hear about.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely an example of that, and he puts so much energy in, and he still farms himself as well. So he's doing making all these products and farming. Um, he's obviously got a team of people with him now, but he's a very busy man.
Oh, I bet. So you mentioned that your father went to Lama as well, and he was going for more of the farming aspect, and you were going for more of the modding aspect. Just out of curiosity, what does your father think of you actually designing mods for a farming game? What is his take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, he's like, I'm never going to understand this, but he's certainly very proud of what I do, and he's such a good kind of advert for it, if you like. He's always on the stand. You will be talking about the product, and you'll be like, oh, yes, this is my son, and he's doing content for Farming Simulator. You've heard it, but like he's definitely excited about it, and can see the reactions that I get and that people get from the content I use. And um, I don't think he'll ever play the game, and I don't think he will never necessarily truly understand it, and he won't mind me saying that. But yeah, he certainly yeah is very kind of very proud of what I do.
That's awesome. So using like Taylor attachments as kind of an example, because they were one of the couple of brands that you were able to help bring into the game. What kind of hoops does a manufacturer have to jump through in order to be able to become part of Farming Simulator?
Yeah, so in order to release on consoles specifically, there has to be a license between the manufacturer and Giant Software. Um, I have a contact that I can use to help get that set up, but they essentially have to agree to their brand and their logo being used within the game. So they have a form to fill out essentially. So it's then a license that agrees between the two companies. Um, there's then it can obviously the license also gives any modder the opportunity to then mod for that manufacturer. So they have to obviously bear that in mind that they're opening their brand to anyone creating content, which is fine. But it's something they have to be aware of. And then for the people that I work with directly, we then exchange some details on the specific products in order for me to make the product as accurate as possible and for them to get the best result the other end. So we have an agreement between ourselves that's not particularly formal, but that obviously I will look after their products.
So, going back to your whole history of Farming Simulator, over that time, you've had to have played on, a fair amount of different maps and all that stuff. So, what would you consider to be your most favorite map throughout all of Farm Sim that you've played so far?
I mean, yeah, Coldbrook Farm. What was it? Cold Park Farm? Is that what it was called? I can't remember what it's called now. Coldbrook Park Farm, I think it was called, which was a UK map. I think for FS19. I think the hours that I put into that map were huge. Um, that just stands out as a favorite that's never come back, which is a shame. There's quite a few maps like that that kind of, particularly as I played a lot more in the earlier days. Um, those are the ones that I've spent huge amount of times invested in those maps. Um, more today, I'm not spending time playing them as much, so they don't resonate as much. But um, Oakbridge um, Farm, that one is spent a lot of time on that, and Oxy did a great job of that. I mean, all of his maps are just from a UK. They represent this area so well, and it kind of talks home to me. So they're the maps that I get the biggest buzz out of.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oak Ridge Farm is a absolutely gorgeous map. And at one point in time, I forget who sent it to me. Actually, might have been Reaver Time Todd. Correct me if I'm wrong, but uh, it was one of those where there's a YouTube video out there and it shows the in-game view versus the real life view, and it's pretty darn close to indistinguishable. Like that's how insane the detail work was on that map. And it's actually Oxygen David coming out with another map. And unfortunately, the name slips my mind right now. Um, but that one looks like absolutely incredible too. And I'm curious and how true to life that one's going to be. But if it's anything
Yeah,
like Oak Bridge, I'd imagine it's pretty darn close.
yeah, I'm very excited about that, and I think there's been a few game kind of back end changes as well since he did his last map. That's going to give him the opportunity to, like, hedgerows and things are going to be even better, um, because of development that's happened in the game as well. So I think. And yeah, he will do a great job, and I'm sure it's going to be very close to reality. I saw a few screenshots with like potholes and things in his road
Hmm.
that I think came out this week, and just those details really add to the character of the map.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I always say, like, during map tours and stuff like that, details, details, details. And really, that can just apply across the board. It doesn't matter if it's a map, doesn't matter, whatever. I mean, the more details that you put into a thing, the better it's going to be just overall, kind of thing. So, yeah, it's definitely ones to look forward to. Um, Kind of same question, but in reverse. What was your least favorite map over the years?
Ooh. Um, I guess probably one of the kind of base game maps, I guess, but I can't think of exactly which one. But um, I think the thing is, I don't, if you're not really feeling a map, um, because of the way farm sim works, is you're not tied to it. So, especially unless you're very early in the game where mods and maps aren't released yet, and you're kind of tied to the first two or three, you just don't have to play it, and you can move on, and that's such a great part of farm sim and the game, and how mods turn your game into how you want it, versus other games where you're playing a level and the level is the level, and you're like, yeah, I can't get through this level, and I don't enjoy this particular level, but I've got to get through it to get to the next one. The great thing about farm sim is you don't have to do that. You can just move on to a different one. So I don't think there's one that particularly stands out as a oh, this is awful. Because I think I haven't really probably loaded one that hasn't had good feedback.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one of the ones that I give as an example of my least favorite map, and it's not because it was poorly made or anything along. Well, I take that back. Um, not it was the map that I was just the most disappointed in, and it
Hmm.
was back in FS19. It was called Southern Cross Station, and it was an Australian map. It came out very early in FS19, and it was one of the first Australian maps that was kind of like on the scene. I think it was actually the first Australian map. So I went and checked it out, and it looked gorgeous. Like, it just going out there, it was big, wide open. And in those days, I was really interested in like the bigger, wide open maps. So I was still learning. So that's when I kind of came into the farm sim scene, was back in FS19. And I'm sitting there kind of going through it and just kind of playing on it. I'm sorry, I said it was FS19. I think it was 22 is what I meant to say. Um, but it was really early on in 22. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to enjoy it and I'm going through, and all of a sudden I go to one of the sell points. And as I'm sitting there at the sell point, I turn the camera, and all of a sudden all the kind of massive towering structures that were there, like the grain silos and all this stuff, and they were huge, just all of a sudden, boom, just disappeared. Like, just, and it was like that at every single one of the sell points. And it
Interesting.
was like, oh man, like that, it was heart-wrenching. But I'm like, okay, well, obviously the map maker is going to come by and like tweak it and make alterations and all that stuff. It sat on version 1.0.0.0 the entire time on the mod hub.
Yeah,
Never got
yeah,
an update. So I use that one as the example of my least favorite map because it was the biggest disappointment to me.
yeah. It's a shame that people, if you're creating the content and you don't then revisit it, yeah, I think that's a real shame. I think particularly in FS19 there were quite a lot of maps that you'd play, and certain aspects were, you'd have this great bit in the middle, and then the closer you get to the outside of the map, and particularly blending into the edges at that point was very much like hard wall of graphic of trees or whatever, and it didn't feel great. And but that, I mean, that's partly a development of the game and how they've been able to improve that. But um, yeah, it is frustrating when you come across a map that is great from the outset, and then it's buggy, or it just doesn't have the same game feel in game that the screenshots gave it credit for.
Exactly. So, looking at your mod hub again, I mean, everything that you've developed up to this point has been either uh, like powered implements or tools or things along those lines, but completely absent of maps. Out of curiosity, has there ever been a time where you've been interested in developing a map, or have you just strictly said, I'm only ever going to do tools and implements?
I'd love to do a map. It's it's I guess I fell into vehicles and implements, and that's where kind of my knowledge ended up being. I'd absolutely love to do a map based in where my dad is. Maybe even feature his farm. That kind of area would be something I'd really like to do, and I may well do kind of in time. Um, I, from my very limited understanding, I don't think it's actually that different to what I already know, but because I just haven't taken that step to to look into it and do it. And I think it's just a case of using some slightly different shaders and different materials, and obviously the 3D modeling side is going to be the same, so that's not a problem. But it's just taking that step and saying, actually, I'm going to put some time into a map. And the time to make a map is obviously huge compared to making an implement. So, at the point that I did take that leap, I would have to sacrifice the 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 mods that I'm putting out from the implements. So I think I've still got a long way I'd like to go with implements and vehicles that I've got to bring to FS25. So um, depending on where I get to with that, I might get to the point where I'm happy with where I am, and then maybe I'll dabble in the map for a bit. Obviously, we don't know what the future of farm sim is, and when the next game might be. But the more you make, the more content you can easily move to the next game. So there might be some more time to explore some other areas.
So, looking back at your slew of mods that you've released up until this point, which one of them was like the easiest by far and away to create?
Uh, the pickup hitch was super easy to create and super successful for what it was, particularly back in FS19 and that. Um, that's because you haven't even got any fill volumes, which is the textures of like for even just doing like a bucket, for example, for a loader. Um, Although the bucket itself is very simple, you still have to have the effects of when you tip the grain and tip the chaff and those elements. Whereas a hitch is literally just a 3D model, a couple of points, and that's it. So that's by far the easiest.
And flipping that coin, which one was the hardest one for you to make?
Um, Probably one of the fast tracks, probably the 4220 icon. Um, Although part of the model I was able to use references from the previous game. All of the kind of icon aspects, all of the arm controls and the interior, that's all drawn from scratch, and I had no references, so I'm purely working off photos, so that I've got no um, your ideal when you're creating a 3D product is you either have a 2D plan that you're then creating the 3D from, so you're getting the proportions completely right, or absolute ideal, you've got 3D data from your manufacturer and you're using that as a reference. So I had not have none of that for JCB stuff, so it was purely working off photos and what I could find on the internet, and obviously, particularly for the interior of a cab, nobody's got a dimensional drawing or haven't got access to the physical product, like some of the stuff. So that was the most time consuming. And with a tractor, particularly, you've got all aspects. So it's the most complicated machine. So you've got, you know, you've got the physical physics, you've got animations, you've got hoses, you've got dashboards, you've got screens, you've got lights. You're covering off all these different elements, and they all have a slightly different process. Um, so full vehicles are by far the most complex.
Well, I mean, that in and of itself is highly impressive. So you're saying that you basically made the fast track like from scratch. You didn't have a model to start out with or anything along those lines. Is that you went through and just completely just ground up?
So not the whole thing, but the cab side of it, yes. The physical kind of bonnet and chassis was the same as the non-icon that Giants had created, so I was able to use that as a reference. Um, but the icon aspects of it, which is mainly the kind of the seat and the armrest and those interior bits, was complete from scratch. The telly truck is another. That's an example of one that was 100% ground up. So that is purely off photos and purely kind of no borrowed material, no yeah, that's
Wow.
completely my own work.
I mean, that's incredibly impressive. Like I always said that I could never be a modder because I don't have that artistic eye. So if I were to try to make the telly truck, mine would look like, a 2-year-old with a crayon got a hold of the computer. Like it'd be awful. absolutely awful. And I know this. That's why I have not even tried. So it's one of those, like, to hear that you built that from scratch is just mind-meltingly incredible. Like that's wild to me. Um, let's see. So we've established your easiest and your hardest mod to create. Um, is there a mod out there that at this point in time you would love to be able to make, but for some reason, whether it's like the technical knowledge isn't there or something along those lines, besides the maps like we were discussing earlier, is there an actual like vehicle or implement out there that you just don't think that you're equipped enough to handle yet?
Yeah, so everyone is obviously screaming for the new JCB Fast Track 6000 series, which is a mod that I'm dabbling with to try and see what I can do. The challenge is there isn't there's very little data. So I do have loads of photos. A, because I saw one this week, so I took my own photos. But B, the community have been really good. There were some people who went to Agritechnica and just sent me loads and loads of photos, which is great and appreciate that. But the getting the proportions right is really challenging. So in a with JCB, normally in a product brochure, you'll get a little 2D outline in the bottom, which at least gives you a starting point to get the proportions right. That doesn't exist yet for that machine. Hopefully, it will exist soon, but it doesn't yet. Uh, and kind of the details of how the chassis is assembled and how little details that are hidden from photos and what you can find on the internet, I just don't feel comfortable enough that I'm going to give the product the justice it needs at this point in time. Um, Now, I'm hoping that will change over the next few months as more things are released. That maybe the brochure's updated. We'll see. But that's kind of probably the biggest one that I'm just on the fence at the minute as to whether you will see it from me or not.
Gotcha. So when every new title releases, there's the hype that builds up over it to tell us all the new features and all those kind of things that occur every single time. In this particular case, for FS25, we end up getting notifications like I mentioned earlier: God raised, ground deformation, light scattering, all these different kind of features that were going to be a part in FS25 that had not existed previously. What is that one feature that you were most excited for from a player's perspective?
Okay, from player's perspective, probably ground deformation was the biggest one. Just um, I felt that it was adding that sense of more of realism. That was probably the one I was most excited about, and kind of that in hand, they added the extra mud to the tires. Um, Kind of so that a tractor that was fully, like plowing or something, just looked more like it was in place as to where it should be in the field rather than just floating on top um, of a 2D texture. So I think that level of detail I was certainly excited about from a visual aspect.
And then from a modder's perspective, what was that one feature that you were most excited for?
Um, think it was probably I don't know. There wasn't from a modding perspective. There wasn't a huge leap. I guess the biggest one was textures. So um, the way because I use Maya, as I said earlier, rather than Blender, The one big advantage you have using that over the other one is you can have all of your textures in your model space. So once I've created the 3D model and I've assigned the textures, it's colored in the space I'm working, and you can see exactly how the different textures are working within your Maya scene, rather than it being, you'll see a lot of the screenshots where everything's grey, which is how it works in Blender. So one of the advantages, as I'm doing changes on the go, and I can see maybe a texture is not quite right, I catch it a lot earlier in the process because I'm working around the machine as if it was in a workshop in real life. It's all textured, it's the right colors. I can see that, oh, I've accidentally made that bit yellow instead of black. And that's just a quick kind of right click change. So um, that's the biggest leap, was that feature, and I think it's. I know Giants were really trying to bring that to Blender, um, and they hadn't quite been able to achieve it, and it's a bit of a shame.
So, of those features, what one were you initially excited for, but after getting hold of the game, trying it out, and all that stuff, what's that one feature you kind of soured on?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it, to some extent, a lot of the features, that we've mentioned, including ground deformation in a way, and it's was really exciting, and I'm very pleased with what they've done, but I was still expecting more. Um, I think it just, particularly with the 3D textures and things, was still expecting maybe a little bit more undulation, a little bit more kind of 3D effects, and it's a good step, but it was a little bit of a letdown in terms of where I thought it was going to go, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. So, again, from a player's perspective, what's one thing that's not in Farm Sim that you really wish was there?
Yeah, I think I touched on it earlier, but I think I'd just love to see more crop kind of variation and failure, um, and maybe kind of other elements of weather and moisture and disease, pests, kind of that affect your crop, which are maybe outside your control, or maybe you have to do some other things to try and prevent. Uh, I think just adding that extra layer of realism would be really good, and um, I think it's also a good kind of education thing to explain to people that it is hard, and it doesn't always go to plan, even in the virtual world. I think that would be really cool.
No, absolutely. That's actually like part of the reason why and this is kind of my best guess, but part of the reason why features such as the precision farming is out there right now is from a kind of educational perspective. Not only do they want you to be able to interact with it in game and kind of see what it is that it can do for the game, but it also gives players an opportunity to understand, like, hey, we want to kind of try and move away from these, you know, from these fertilizers that maybe, yes, they increase the yield, but maybe causing harm to the planet. There's all these different kind of aspects. So, it's kind of a mixture of entertainment and education kind of thing. So, oh my goodness, my mind just went on me. I was going somewhere with that, and I'm getting old apparently. Holy smokes. Yeah, no, I don't. I completely lost it. I
It's
had it.
gone. That's
It's
fine.
gone.
Yeah, I think it's like it's yeah the education of trying to communicate to people within the game what farming is really like. I think is something that would be a really good change. If, is it come back to you?
It did. Go
Go
ahead and
for
finish
it.
what you were saying.
No, I'm about done. Go for it.
So yeah, so that education versus like entertainment kind of thing, kind of showing the people what is actually being like done out there in the farm world, and being able to kind of bridge the gap between like the feature that you were saying, being able to have those kind of negative ramifications, those negative repercussions, um, like that would be another part of that kind of educational portion of things. It's like, hey, crops can be diseased, they can, fail for a multitude of reasons, and adding that kind of a feature in there would just bring greater education of, hey, these are the things that need to be kind of understood and avoided in order to not have either mass failure or grain loss or whatever the case may be. Would be nice to see that as kind of an additional kind of layering to their kind of educational portion of things.
Yeah, and I think Giants would have the opportunity to explore that more and work with manufacturers a little bit closer. I don't know the full details, but I know that I think they were working with Agritechnica and um, they were showing off a load of the new products and that those manufacturers are actually starting to use Farming Simulator in some of their training and some of their kind of communication internally within the manufacturers and I think it would be good if they could get it to the point where colleges are using it as a demonstration tool and especially if they can implement these more realistic approaches and surely there's a way to monetize that if that's what they care about but which would then make the game more realistic for the player.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a modder, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's just looking to start out in the modding scene?
Yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice probably is start small. And I know a lot of people say this, but um, do something small and get it right. That's the best way that you'll learn. It's it's so tempting, and I have the same problem today that you want to do the full tractor, you want to do the really exciting thing, but if you rush it too soon, um, you'll spend so many hours. There's things that I still find now where I'll find a new process or a new tool, and it's just saved me 3 hours of this thing that I didn't know. And actually, I wish early on I spent more time doing some more tutorials, looking at some more YouTubes, finding those little tips and tricks, because you'll find that you'll create your mod in a quarter of the time, rather than just trying to wing it all the time. But it works by winging it. But I would just say pick a thing, make it small, watch your tutorial, follow it all the way through from start to finish, and be proud of what you've created. Um, Rather than kind of making a mess of something bigger and being frustrated with it and being angry that you haven't been able to achieve it straight away. Um, I hope that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And to your point too, I mean, sometimes some of those simpler mods and they can be very impactful, without our
Definitely.
understanding and knowledge. I mean, look at you. The pickup hitch was your example. You said that was one of your easier mods to make, and it turned out to be an absolute hit kind of thing. So it's one of those where people, like you said, are looking for the bigger, better, badder kind of, piece of equipment. But, starting out with something smaller and getting it perfect is going to serve you a lot better than trying to go out and go after this big, flashy thing that you might not get right, or even worse, you might become frustrated with because you just are not putting all the pieces together yet, and thus
Yeah.
goes incomplete, or you get discouraged and put it out there and it's not to the level that you want it to be. So no, I completely get what you're
There's
saying.
this
That makes total sense.
there's so many elements to a lot of mods, and um, like I say, particularly with like effects and um, kind of grain filling up in a trailer and the way you tip it and things like that. Can they're quite hard to get your head around, and you have to use the right tools, otherwise they don't work. And there's certain things that if you don't get certain orientations right, it will just won't work in game, and you'll get very frustrated. But if you just want to have a go at creating a 3D model and getting it in game and getting it to work, something like a weight or a weight box for like the front of a tractor, something like that, only uses your 3D, your texturing, and your coding. Um, Something that's a great place to start, rather than using something that uses effects. So avoiding buckets, trailers, um, anything that has an effect. You'll find it easier to start without that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, up until this point in time, what has been your most memorable moment in your modding career so far?
Um, Most memorable moment. I think uh, there's probably the llama meetup last year that we had. I think that was a really cool community thing that the guys did, and um, it was just really nice to see some people in reality, talk to people, um, kind of see some appreciation, get to show some appreciation to other people. That was yeah, that was a good moment.
So, we touched on earlier your easiest mod and your hardest mod. Which one of them is your favorite mod?
My favorite mod's probably gonna say I have their favorite for different reasons, but I think the one that I love just looking at and playing with is the 420 icon fast track. Like I just use it all the time. Any implement I'm testing, like it's with that. Um, but yeah, I do like ones for different reasons. Like I like the older one that I created, the 3000. I like the fact that there's something a little bit older. I'd like to make an older one again if I can get enough information on one. Um, I think the fast track that Giants released, the older one, I think was a little bit disappointing in my opinion. So maybe I could do a better job. I don't know. um, but yeah, I like so many of them for lots of different reasons, including, let's say, uh, I'd go back to it, the pickup hitch. It's just I love a thing that fixes a problem in the game, and I'd love to do more of those, but I think I need to play it a little bit more to find them. But um, it's just what I remember in the back of my mind from when I was playing in the early days is frustrations at things I couldn't do. And I think as a player, one of the really exciting things about mods is finding a mod that overcomes something that was frustrating you, and I'd love to be able to feel more of that.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, for a lot of players out there, there's certain people that when you see their stuff come across the mod hub, you are very excited to see their stuff. Like you got, you can almost call them favorite modders or map makers, whatever the case may be. Do you have somebody that you look out for and it's like that's the person that I look for their mods specifically for whatever reason, whether it's because you want to, interact with them and use them on your personal games or just kind of take inspiration from? Who would you say is like that person to you?
Yeah, I think from a map point of view, as I've mentioned, always keeping an eye on what Oxygen David's doing, because just any map that he releases, I know will be great, and I'm always looking for great backgrounds to have for screenshots for the mods I create. Um, so he's one to follow. And then kind of beyond that, I think I keep an eye on some mod videos to see what other people are doing. I'm always very interested in what everyone's doing to see what people might have tried or what features people might have implemented. There's a few features that have come out with various DLCs that have snuck in. Some of the more obvious ones, like when the Mercedes DLC came out, we got the rear cameras feature. So it is good but there are some more kind of hidden features that do slip in as DLCs are released that you don't necessarily know exist unless you talk to other modders and um, let's say I've bounced some stuff off 4D modding before, where both of us have come across things we haven't been able to do, and particularly in the early releases of the games, uh, one that springs to mind is they changed how um, flashing beacons worked in the background, so we had to and there was no documentation. So they released some documentation to say how lights had changed, but they hadn't released documentation to say how beacons had changed. And I was lucky enough that I accidentally found out how it worked, um, and then it kind of spoke to some other modders and said, "Oh, I found this out," and we shared that information. But um, yeah,
Excellent, excellent. Well, that is the last question I have for this segment. And taking a look at the chat, I'm not seeing too many other questions there. So I think we are good to go into the third and final segment called That's a Silage Wrap. And this we're going to start closing things out. Ross, first things first, I want to thank you so very, very much for doing the show here tonight and more specifically making the time to be able to do this. For those who didn't pick up on this, Ross is completely on the other side of the world there over in the UK. And yeah, it's probably going on what, like 5 a.m. your time?
yeah, 20 past 5 now.
Yeah. So, I mean, absolutely huge, giant thank you from the bottom of my heart for not only, doing this show, but being as accommodating as you've been. Greatly appreciate it.
No problem at all. I'm happy to get involved and appreciate everything that content creators do for publicizing the mods I create, and without you guys as well, people wouldn't know me or what I do. So appreciate that as well.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, absolutely by far and away my pleasure. Um, do you have any future plans or projects that you are willing to share with us here tonight?
Uh, so there's a couple that have been submitted that are on my socials. So there's a JCB 419 loader and the Bailey loader. They're both submitted for testing. So hopefully people will see those drop in the next couple of weeks. In terms of beyond that, I can't disclose anything specific, but what I would say is I've had some really good conversations with some new manufacturers at Llama this year, and hopefully, I can't guarantee anything that that would develop into getting some new brands onto console, and if it does, that would be really exciting.
Oh, I mean, even the premise of it sounds exciting. So that is awesome. Can you remind us again where we can find you?
Yeah, so most of my updates you'll find on either Facebook /RossN Mods, or my website, rossnmods.com. And from that website, you can link through to the Farming Simulator website to find all of the mods that are released.
Excellent. Well, again, I want to thank you so much for participating in the show tonight. I had an absolute blast with you here tonight.
Yeah, me too. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And this is the time where I turn to the audience and say, did you enjoy it? I hope you did. If you enjoy this show, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know who you'd like to see next on Farm Sim Talk. Unfortunately, I can't know everybody that's out there and be available to be able to do this show. So it's one of those that I very much rely on the audience out there to be able to offer me suggestions, to be able to bring people from the community into the show. You can reach out to me at any of my socials, Instagram, Facebook, X, and Discord. Any one of those, feel free to reach out to me, and I will do my absolute best to get them onto the show. The only requirements I have is that they have to be above the age of 18. If they're not above the age of 18, unfortunately, I cannot host them here on the show. But all that being said, like I said, really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, please show me by liking, sharing, subscribing, following, commenting, doing all the things. The algorithms enjoy you doing the shows you're engaged with this channel and enjoying the content. And that being said, I hope everybody has a fantastic day. Take care. Ross, if you can hang on until after the outro, I'll catch you on the other side.
Yeah, man.
All right. Take care, everyone.
This is Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Let's roll. Out here in the country, where the roads run wide, there's a world behind the pixels that we're bringing to the light. From maps to mods, to the rigs we drive, we're talking to the folks who keep this farm life alive. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull up a chair and ride along with me. Stories from the makers, the builders of the scene. Farm Sim Talk, where we live the farming dream. He's got questions rolling like a big John Deere, digging deep with modders so their voices we can hear. From giants of the code to the artists painting skies, he's shining up their stories like a brand new combine. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull up a chair and ride along with me. Stories from the makers, the builders of the scene. Farm Sim Talk, where we live the farming dream. From tractors to textures, from silos to sounds, there's a whole crew of heroes making this world go round. So tune in and find out who's behind the screen. Farm Sim Talk's the place to see what farming really means. It's Farm Sim Talk with BDD. Come pull